Hey guys, welcome. We are so happy you're here with us tonight. Just going to introduce myself really quick. Tammy Burtron, Emerald Ambassador with Plexus, and we have invited sideline friends to join us tonight. So this is just not Team Plexi Pals. So if you are not a part of Team Plexi Pals, we are so happy that you have joined us tonight, and we're just excited to see what this series can do for our business. You know, I'm just going to take a second and kind of tell you how this kind of got started. So my husband decided to go to convention with me this year in Vegas. Some of y'all probably saw him. And on the way home, we got to thinking about how could we incorporate what he's good at with what I'm good at, and that is growing my business. And he's good at all this leadership stuff that he has training in, and he has the experience in with his career. And so we've decided to mesh the two together and came up with this little life and leadership series for the next 4 weeks. And so we're just excited to see what this can do for us. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking because this is not my platform tonight. I am going to learn right along with the rest of you. So again, welcome. And I'm going to turn this over to my fabulous, handsome, amazing, incredible, okay, I should probably stop, husband, Todd Burtron, who's in the next room over, and he's going to take this and do his thing. So welcome, babe. We're glad you're here and happy that you're doing this for us. So thank you.
Hello, everyone. I see like 3 people in here. Janine's picture. I don't know who's to my lower left. Is this Chastity? Is that right? There's Rhonda. I don't know who Kimberly Austin is. Hey, who's the dude with the beard? So look, let me say thanks. Thanks for tuning in. I've met a few of you. I know Kristen really well, and she's completely blanked out here if I see her name. I've met Rhonda, and full disclosure, I am more comfortable speaking in front of a live audience of hundreds than I am doing this. So this is a new thing, my best, and I'm really excited about this opportunity, not only to share things that I've learned, but certainly as a growth opportunity for me to engage people on a computer, which might sound silly, but at the same time, it's just something I'm not used to. So Tammy's right. We got to talking, and I've been thinking about, I've been given all these experiences and opportunities to learn, to receive education, and then actually use what I've learned in real time in the real world. And I've not always done it right. I try to get it right. So tonight, I just want to start out by saying thank you for taking the time. I'd really rather have a dialogue, and I know it's kind of tough with everybody muted, but if you have something you'd like to share with the group or ask me, I may not know. Just to give you a little bit more of my background, I've been in the workforce for over close to 30 years. A lot of that's been in leadership and management, upper level leadership. And things like that. So I've learned in real time, sometimes the hard way. But I start this whole series off by something that seems really elementary, but without it, I think our next 3 weeks would be really unproductive. And so I want to start off with really the topic of self-awareness. And I've had to learn this the hard way. And I'm going to share this. I don't know, do I get to see myself, or is this all, oh, I get to see off to the side, right? Oh, good. I got the Zoom queen is in the other room. So everybody see the PowerPoint? Thumbs up, yes? All right, good. So so self-awareness. I don't know what triggers in your mind when you hear that term. I don't know what mental pictures or images come into your mind. And by the way, the pink slide with the confetti is not by accident. That is totally by on purpose. Plexus pink. So hopefully I can score bonus points with everybody with that. And I've learned this the hard way because you get very comfortable with yourself, and you don't really get to view or really hear what other people think about you until it's too late, until there's a conflict. And I try to practice self-awareness, and no doubt you all at one point or another have walked up to a directory in a mall and it says you are here, and how helpful that is to say, okay, this is where I'm at, and this is where I want to go, and this is how I get there. I'm looking for this store. I'm looking for this location. Well, and so today, in today's world, we have all of our digital mapping, and there's a pin drop, or there's a blue dot that gives us the awareness of where we're at, because it's where we want to go. And so one of my favorite lines of all time, and I'm going to age myself a little bit, is the 1992 vice presidential debate where Ross Perot, which, by the way, the billionaire Ross Perot just died, 89 years of age. So some of us that would remember that presidential campaign, a guy by the name of Admiral James Stockdale walked to the podium and says, "Who am I and why am I here?" And that question, while he was laughed at and he's made fun of even yet today as one of the worst presidential, vice presidential debates of all time in modern history, that particular statement or question, two questions, really stuck with me. And I think while people make a joke about it, it's very profound. Who am I and why am I here? Now, I believe that and I know the self-awareness subject matter is unilateral, is very applicable to all dimensions of our life, no matter if it's our relationship with our significant other, no matter if it's a relationship with our kid, our children, our parents, our coworkers, the person that delivers our mail. It's the relationship. And I've said that many times, and I'm a person who tries to simplify in a statement a very complex subject matter. And I've say this with frequency: relationships are the connective tissue to success. Well, if you can't develop a relationship with somebody, or you don't develop a relationship with somebody, it's because you don't have self-awareness of what do I like. Think about the times you were dating and getting to know the person that really was drawing our affection. And what do I like? Where do you like to go? What do you like to do? And it's just, who am I and why am I here? Well, I can tell you this. I'm learning this and asking myself this with great frequency. Who am I? Am I this person? Am I that person? Not that I'm a confused or I don't have a self-identity. It's just, and I think as it relates to your business, it relates to your relationships, it's always those important questions. Why here? There's a book by Simon Sinek, Start With Why. And I talk about this in my place of business, and why are we here? Why do you show up to work? Is it just to draw a paycheck? Well, if it's just to draw a paycheck, you can find any number of employers to do that. They'll deposit a check in your account every week or every 2 weeks, and you show up, you work 40, they pay you 40, you're even. But there's more than just that. There's a book published in 1996 called First Break All the Rules, and it dispels the myths because it was really a vogue thing and a debate of what's the difference between management and leadership. And so they kind of broke that down. They did a survey of over several years with a couple million people, everything from a person who worked in garbage collection to physicians and lawyers. And they came up with 12 key components of why people choose the job that they have. And interestingly enough, pay was not the top one. is, am I valued? And so why am I here? What am I contributing to? I think you can ask yourself as I speak tonight and present this, apply it to whatever dimension, particularly plexus, in growing your business. Excuse me, is why am I here? Is it merely to rank up and draw a paycheck and do all these cool things, or is it to really develop a relationship and add value to someone's life through the products that Plexus offers? And I'm not that expert. Tammy has a hard enough time keeping me focused on taking my stuff on a daily basis. That's a different Zoom call altogether. Sorry about that. Moving along, I would say this: first, seek to know thyself. Seek to know yourself. Be comfortable who you are. And it's interesting that in my journey in this, it hasn't been taught that we should develop this awareness before we seek to possess authority. People will apply for management positions, a shift manager, a crew leader, a captain, a lieutenant, and they'll do all those things, but they've not looked and studied of who they are, and they possess authority. And possession of authority is not the same as being a leader. You don't have to have an official title by an organization. You have to have delegated authority to be a leader. Leadership is influence. Peer leadership is perhaps the most effective form of leadership versus someone with a title that possesses authority. And we can talk more about that at a later time. And before we seek to lead, of course, I need to know who I am, what shortcomings, what are my weaknesses, what are my strengths, before I really seek to lead. And we don't do enough of that in our society. We throw somebody in a leadership position and pat them on the back, good luck, and speed away down the street, so to speak. And then we expect them to have exemplary performance and settle all conflicts and just sail right through it. And if they don't, we get upset and we fire them and return them back to the workforce, and the process starts all over again. But we didn't have enough wherewithal to say, who are you and why are you here? Let me ask you a question. Can you, by chiming in or unmuting yourself or holding up a number, behavioral scientists theorize our personalities are established by the age of what? What age? Do you might know? Got a wild guess? Tammy says 3. What does everybody else say? Unmute. Hold your fingers up. I only see 3 people. I only see 2 people.
Lauren says 5, and Kimberly says 5, and Rhonda says 2.
You're all very close. 3. Tammy was right. There's the source. And I think you're going to save this PowerPoint so you can go back and review it. Behavioral scientists believe that our personalities are formed by the age of 3. And you think about that for just a second. Age of 3. What's a typical 3-year-old? Think about all the 3-year-olds you've ever encountered in your life, whether your kids, your grandkids. We probably can't think of our own memories of our own selves at the age of 3, but think about when you're thinking about your 3-year-old right now, that's how they're going to behave when they're 26 years old. Aren't you encouraged by that? I'm only kidding. Age of 3. So, wow, I don't know if I like that idea. Of our personalities have formed and taken a structure that is going to carry it with us through adulthood. Now that's an amazing theory, and I believe they're trying to prove this theory over and over again, that when we're at such a young age, and there's so many things that go into that, the societal structure they're in, the nurturing or the lack thereof, the parenting or the lack thereof, the social interactions or the lack thereof have formed and shaped, and they theorize almost have a level of permanency by the age of 3. And so when we move through our lives, when we have these personality traits, we then say, okay, well, you said, well, you have a conflict with somebody, so what's their issue? Well, maybe if we saw their 3-year-old version, we might have a better understanding. And looking into what shaped and formed them. I can remember on the fire department, so those of you that don't know, I So the balance of my career before I'm doing what I'm doing now was spent in the fire service. And so it's a very high octane environment, a lot of strong personalities, predominantly male, a lot of egos, and people will get upset and really be judgmental. And then, but until you get to know somebody, I know one of the guys that was on my crew, he was constantly trying to define himself and make himself relevant. Well, when you get to talking to him, you know about his background. His father was absent. His mother had several boyfriends throughout his childhood, and he moved to a different school almost every year. So he had to reestablish himself in that social environment, and that carried into his adulthood to when he tried to intermingle and mesh with a different team. And so how do others see or view you and view me? That's it. That is, that's an interesting thing and very almost scary thing. And it's not an effort to change who you or who I am or who we are, but it's to better understand how people will approach or not approach you and me. Those of you that have not met me, I am 6'5". As you can see, I'm bald. My eyes are deep set in my head, usually in the back of my skull. And I have this low voice. And I have this strong brow line. And even when I'm happy, I look like I'm mad at the world, like right now. See, I'm happy. Can't you tell? I'm just, the joy is just beaming off of me. I just can't contain myself. I'm so happy. See, but I get people say, "What, man? Why are you mad?" Well, they're viewing me like I'm mad. And me, it bothers me sometimes. But I can't change my facial structure, but I can change if how I present myself. I can change that. Something I've learned to do, that if I know there's going to be a confrontation or it could be confrontational, and I don't want to intimidate that person, either consciously or subconsciously, I sit down because I forget sometimes how tall I am and how I can tower over people and I can intimidate them without ever knowing. And so they go into the safety mode, and I never really get to have a meaningful conversation with them. I remember one of my classmates when I was at Harvard Kennedy School. She's an Israeli woman. Her name's Liat, and we sat next to one another. And you can imagine a room full of strangers and differences in culture and religious beliefs and even gender. And Liat was sitting next to me, and we were having this conversation probably day 2, day 3, and she goes, when I first saw you, I thought, he's a strong leader. And it's really struck me because I don't know Leah. I didn't know her before then. I haven't seen her since. But that was her first impression, that because of my size, she didn't have a conversation with me. She sized me up based on physical features that I was a strong leader. One would say she's right. But it's interesting to hear other people share their view of how you are. And that can be a scary prospect, that I don't know if I want to know the opinions of others. Well, if you don't get the opinions of others, then how do you know how to react in that particular environment? Think about this. Environmental changes. I don't change who I am when it's cold outside here in Indiana, but I dress for the occasion. So if I have an audience and I know who they are, or they have this misperception or a perception of me, maybe I do adjust how I react or interact with them based on the environmental conditions. Do I sit down when I don't want to intimidate them, or when I want to exert control and know that and make sure they understand that I have control? I am going to stand up. I may square my shoulders, and I may say, "Huh?" and I look at them. I don't get in their space like that. But so it's, how do others see me? How do others see you? Is there someone who will share their perspective of you? Somebody that you trust, they trust you. You won't get offended. You won't get upset, and then close down. A lot of people don't like that. They don't want to hear what other people have to say about them. And it's not always easy to say, "Hey, what do you think about me?" That happens in a natural conversation. And usually somebody, maybe a different perspective than your significant other, your spouse, your boyfriend, somebody that's known you for a while. Get somebody else's perspective of who you are or what they believe. So what now? Well, I could talk about this for a long time. I know we don't have a long time on here. So what do we do now? Well, first of all, self-reflection. Take a moment after this session and the days after. What do I do? Really, who am I? Now, you all are embarking on building a business. Yes, you have the framework and infrastructure of the Plexus Corporation, but it's all dependent upon you. It's all about you developing relationships. It's all about how people perceive you. I've watched Tammy with a front row seat over the last 5 years, and she has changed, but still to her core, she is the same person. She has more courage than I do on some of this stuff. I'm not a salesy guy. Maybe I will be. I don't know. I'd rather do this sort of thing. I'd rather be in the thick of a hot confrontation and make split-second decisions that I know will make an impact. But that's who I am. I've often said I don't pick fights, but I'm not afraid of them either. I can be confrontational. I'm aware of that. And then I have to gauge that. I have to kind of throttle that back a little bit, because I don't need to be bull rushing into every conversation or every confrontation. Sometimes the best action is no action. Let me say that again. Sometimes the best action is no action when you're talking about confrontation. So reflect on yourself. Assessment tools. There's a lot of assessment tools. I'm getting ready to share a link, and then take action. This link that just popped up is from Berkeley. There's a lot of assessment tools out there. You've probably done them yourself. They're DISC, Myers-Briggs, so on and so forth. Some of those have been overly commercialized for profit. This link here will take you to a series of quizzes. And maybe if I pop up real quick here, am I still sharing the screen? Great. I'm way more techie than I thought. This is what that website looks like. And so it's Greater Good Magazine. You see quizzes along the banner there. There's several different quizzes. You see there: happiness at work, social capital, connection to humanity, altruism, gratitude, emotional intelligence, blah, blah, blah. I did this one before we got on here, and it's about, let me see which one it is, the mindfulness quiz, right? So
hey, Todd,
Todd,
this is Janine. We're not able to see what you're sharing. We still see your PowerPoint, but it's okay. I just wanted to make sure you knew that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Janine. I was clicking on stuff trying to see if it was just on my end. Huh.
You can't see that?
No.
Can you see? You can see the. Hang on one second. You can see the PowerPoint in that link. Is that true?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So when you go to that greatergood.berkeley.edu/quizzes, there's a host of self-awareness quizzes that you can go on. That's free. And I want to flip over here just real quickly. I did a quiz right before we got on about mindfulness, and I will say it was accurate. I can't disagree with what it assessed, because I am kind of hard on myself, and it says that based on my responses after 20 questions, that gave me some tips on what to do to not be so self-judgmental. So is the PowerPoint still up? I'm sorry. Greater good. Okay. All right. So the next one, the next slide is, why is all this important? I believe this. First and foremost, we are emotional beings, and we can't help it. When somebody says, "Well, don't be emotional," let's take the emotion out of it. It is humanly impossible to not be emotional. You just can't not be emotional. So Darwin, I'm not here to describe Darwinism. That's not the point. He did write things down, and in one of his journals, he is reported to have in studying his own emotions, he had a snake, a very vicious viper, aggressive snake, on the opposite side of a pane of glass. And they say he wrote in his journals, "I told myself, do not flinch," as I pressed my face against the glass. And when he did, press his face against the glass, he flinched because it was an uncontrolled natural response. We have two sides of our brain that neuroscience has identified. One is an analytical side, the other is an emotional side. Our emotional side of our brain fires milliseconds before our cognitive side or analytical side. So think of a coworker who you can tell their performance has waxed and waned, or they're distracted, and you're getting frustrated with them, and people will come in, you need to fire, her, you need to write him up, blah, blah, blah. Well, maybe the first question is, if you have a relationship with that person, everything okay at home? Is everything okay outside of work? Because their emotional side is hijacked and uber focused on what is going on in their life, and they're not able to process and analyze. That's when people, when they have panic attacks, they freak out, and they just you've seen it in movies, people get slapped across the face trying to regain their attention. Their cognitive or their analytical side of their brain has shut down because the emotions and the chemicals and the endorphins and all those things have fired. So it's humanly impossible to not be emotional, but we can control those. And our emotions frame how we see the world and how the world sees us. You can picture somebody in your mind right now. You probably labeled them as a nut job. Anything, the slightest little thing gets out of the way or gets out of kilter, they're just freaking out. Well, that's how we view them, because that's what they've given us to see. So being self-aware, what are those things that trigger my emotions? How we process interactions and how we deal with conflict. Do we avoid it or do we bull rush it? Is that how I'm wired up? I just described to you myself. I don't pick fights, but I don't run from them either. And I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. Sometimes I just need to just walk away, and rather than, try to right the wrong as I see it. And how we assess risk, you'll see on those quizzes that link I shared with you, they'll give you an idea of how you assess risk, how you read people, emotional intelligence. Are they frowning? Is that anger, or are they distraught? Are they upset? Are they happy? Are they have joy? And this is a thing that paraphrased Dr. David Jeremiah, who's a minister out in San Diego. He says, there are no new human emotions. And quite frankly, we've identified them all. And I've shared this many times, because when I heard that statement, there was a natural disaster somewhere on the other side of the world. I don't remember exactly when and where, but I remember watching the news footage of a woman who had lost her loved one in the aftermath of the natural disaster. I didn't know her culture. I don't know her culture. I don't know their monetary system, their religious beliefs, their societal expectations. I don't know any of that. But what I could identify with was her crying, her agony, and grief over the loss of a loved one. There was a universal language. There was a universal emotion. So it doesn't matter if you're from the other side of the world, from Asia, Europe, doesn't matter. If you see somebody smile or laugh, hey, you identify with that. And so the same is true with us and who we are and our beings, and being self-aware. Self-awareness is an honest effort to look into the mirror in order to acknowledge strengths and weaknesses. There's a typo there. In order to acknowledge strengths and weaknesses. Once we embrace our strengths and weaknesses, we can then develop a self-development system or process to achieve goals. And then, what am I truly capable of? And then develop confidence in what I know and what I do not know. And the only person a fraud is fooling is him or herself. You can usually pick out real quickly when somebody's trying to fake their way through it. They're not genuine. They're making things up. They're pulling things out of thin air. But when you're confident in what you know, and more confident perhaps in what you don't know, then you'll start to go places. People will develop a respect and admiration when you say, I don't know. Sometimes in leadership and management and possessions of authority, we feel like we got to have all the answers. That's foolishness. And I've seen people in those positions lose their integrity, lose their standing, and lose their influence because they're making stuff up, because they're not aware. of themselves, and they're not aware of what they don't know. And once you develop all that, you develop a process and a system, and you're developing yourself by listening to others, reading books, even this, then you start to develop and recognize what you're truly capable of. And there will be somebody, if not already, in your life that will unlock talent within you that you didn't know you had already. And they'll take a chance on you and believe in you. You may feel like they've just left you high and dry, but all the while they're standing back watching you grow and develop. And as you develop your own self-awareness of who am I and why am I here? So I will put a bow on all this. I know it was fast, I know it was rapid, but if there are questions or ideas that you have that have come up in the last 20 minutes, maybe even 30, has it been that long? Almost 30 minutes. Share them with this group. I don't know if there's a text or there's a unmute the mic, throw the question out at me. I don't know it all. I'm confident in what I know and what I do not know. So I'll just hush and let you guys kind of take over.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. I have a whole paper, full of notes. So I hope you guys were able to take a lot away from this as well. Again, thank you for joining us. Does anybody have any questions? If so, I'm sure we can unmute here. Unmute individually if you have a question that you want to ask about this topic. If not, we'll close it down. Tell everybody good night, and we'll see you next Tuesday. No? Nobody?
Great
Okay,
job,
guys.
Todd. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. Thank you, you guys. Have a wonderful night. See you next week. Bye.